Hello and welcome to the Sacramento Dugout Show. Tonight I'm very excited to have two 916 Sacramento icons in the building. Jerry Manuel, Anthony Manuel, welcome and thank you for coming.
What's going on?
Hey, you guys both have playing experience, 5 years or more, playing baseball, 9 years coaching, 2000 American League Manager of the Year, 97 World Series coach, but more importantly, your playing days. You got the family, you got your son coaching and playing. What was it like coaching Anthony back when he was young?
Well, Anthony was just like any other parent who has a kid playing. He wouldn't listen to me. He'd rather say, "Dad, this is what the coach is telling us." I said, "Well, he probably don't know a lot about what you're doing, but if you want to play, you got to listen to your coach." But it was exciting. It was exciting to watch him maturate and try to get to the next level. He had a good collegiate career, and then he got a chance to play a little pro ball and get that experience. So that was a good thing.
And for you, Anthony, your fathers and yourself, the whole Manuel family are very humble guys. But what was it like, your dad playing, coaching all those years, and coming up and wanting to be that ball player? What was that like for you?
Oh man, that's my testimony. To be honest, growing up, that's what I saw. I would go be in the clubhouse with these guys, and I remember from a very young age, I always said, I want that to be my life. That's what I want to do. So, obviously, raise my hand every time in this school. Ask what do you want to be when you grow up as a professional baseball player. But when I was younger, it was tough. I was a very small kid, didn't have a lot of strength or speed. So I even got cut for a few years in middle school, high school. For my freshman year, I didn't even make the team. I was catching every ball, but I wasn't really getting across the diamond. Crushing every ball, but didn't leave the infield. So it was baseball's always been a huge love in my life. It's been one constant, besides God and family. So it's been an amazing journey to be able to have him along the way. It's been really cool, in a crazy way, I feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah, because what you guys are doing now for the city of Sacramento is pretty huge with the J.M.F. Foundation. Mm-hmm. Could you give a little light of the mission and the vision behind it for the youth today? That's how
well, the mission is to try to give the kids that are underserved a chance to play and to not necessarily eradicate pay for play, but give them another option that we can take care of so they can enjoy the game of baseball. We see that our culture is 70% single family. So to get a bat these days is $300. So there's not many parents going to get that, and to play on these travel teams and these types of things is quite an expense for economically challenged culture. So we target the African American, but we're not exclusive to that. We just kind of target whoever will let him come, and everybody's inclusive in the thing. And we try to take care of all expenses. All that we ask them to do is be good students. So baseball is basically a carrot for them to go to school, get an education, and to become better men, and reciprocity, go back to your communities at the end and make it what you would like it to be, where it can be safe for you and what have you. So our character part of our mission is probably our biggest thing for the young men that we come into contact with. The relationships that we build there are huge, and we think that they are things that can take them further in life, even if they don't decide to go the route of baseball.
Yeah, I was looking on your site, and you guys have the Jackie 9. Mm-hmm. It's a list of affirmations, a list of positive quotes, and I think that's pretty huge right now, especially targeting African Americans in baseball. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Oakland, and we had Oakland Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
And we played Sacramento. Y'all was good up here, but
Louis Butler.
Yeah, Coach Butler. Yeah. But my point is though that when I was growing up, probably the last generation where baseball was in common form for people like us. Mm-hmm. And I just want you to when you was playing, played at Cordova High growing up. Could you tell us like the makeup, the motivation behind black people playing baseball, and then from your coaching career, how you see the numbers now? Like,
well, I came here from my father was a military guy, so I came here from Texas, and so football was pretty big. So obviously football was a big thing for me coming here to California. First time I ever been in an integrated environment. So football came, and then my dad would ask me, who my father played in the Negro Leagues with the Atlanta Black Crackers. He asked me, well, what do you think about the football out here in California? I said, it's not like Texas. It's a little different. And we played basketball. So I said, it's okay. Then we played baseball. I said, wow, they can really play baseball out here, Dad. I said, this is really a baseball place. So that gave me a passion and a strategy to say, hey, let me get with this, because that's what my dad did, and I wanted to be obviously adequate and very confident in playing baseball. So that's kind of how I got in baseball. When I was drafted, I didn't know what the draft meant. When they drafted me, they called me out of a school out of Cordova and said, hey, you've been drafted, you need to go to the office. I said, dang, I ain't going to no Army. I said, no, I'm going to play sports somewhere. I'm not going to the Army. They said, no, you've been drafted in the first round by the Tigers. I said, oh, okay. Let me get ready for that.
So you didn't know you was a first-round draft pick?
No, I didn't know.
You didn't know, like, scouts was at your game?
Oh, I knew scouts was there to see other people.
Oh, so your team was stacked?
Yeah, our team. And so I said baseball was so huge in Sacramento. You had scouts that came out to see other people, and then I said, well, no, they're going to leave here. They're going to know who I am. And I was fortunate enough to be drafted in the first round by the Tigers, and went right on into playing baseball, and then built, that fraternity in minor leagues and then major leagues, and we still stay in touch with those guys today, guys that I played with in the big leagues, like Hall of Fame guys like Andre Dawson, Tim Raines. I mean, it's just it was a great fraternity of people, because we knew the struggles that came along with baseball, the handling of failure, that type of thing. So and it was important to our culture. It was so important to our culture that at one time Michael Jordan left basketball to come play our game. So our culture was always ingrained ever since the Negro Leagues. I mean, guys talk to Bob Kendricks down at MLB. I mean, he could tell you that once they decided to integrate the game, it really hurt us as a culture. But at the same time, 9 out of the 10 National League MVPs came from the Negro League.
They called it the disciples of Jackie Robinson.
Yes, sir.
Willie Mays,
Jackie wasn't the best player at that time.
You had
Jackie,
somebody like Josh Gibson, you had Satchel Paige, you had Mill Settles. Yeah.
But Jackie had the character that could withstand the prejudice that came along with with being there and being alone. And
he had the makeup. Went to UCLA from Pasadena.
Exactly.
He played with white players growing up, so he. I mean, it was definitely the right guy for the job.
No doubt.
But since we're talking about the Negro Leagues, at one point it was the third largest business in a black community.
No doubt.
Like,
Comiskey Park would be full. An All-Star game would have it in Comiskey Park. It was an event, and that's the first time I saw baseball as a kid. Was a Sunday afternoon in Texas. We went about 20 miles outside of this place called Amarillo, and they were playing baseball, and I looked through this knothole. It was just full of blacks, and they were just having a great time. I said, Dad, this is what I'm going to do. I got to do this.
So you saw a Negro League game?
I saw a Negro players playing together.
Like an exhibition game?
Yeah, in
His dad used
So
to pitch. His dad was a
your father Lorenzo, am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a pitch. He actually organized some of those what they call sandlot games.
Oh, no doubt.
Just so he can get work in and try to showcase himself. Like,
Right.
hey, this is what I can do, and I'm beating the best.
Right. Well, what happened was my mom he was working for the railroad, so he played with the Negro Leagues in Atlanta. But my mom said, "Hey, I want to go back to Barney." And we had 7 kids, so Mom had the right to do what she wanted to do. So when he went back to South Georgia, he decided to start up his own league in that area.
Wow.
And he played. He was a player coach while he was doing that.
That must have been something else, because South Georgia was baseball mecca at one time,
right.
and for a black man to start up his own league,
Yeah.
I bet you he had lots of confrontations, struggles,
Oh, yeah.
but also successes.
Oh no, tremendous success. He's a pitcher, and the word is on the street when he would pitch, I would find my way to the first base line and mimic what he was doing when he started that, and they said, "Hey, get that little boy off the field before he get killed." So that was my experience in growing up with baseball. So I definitely had a great passion in my heart for the game, and for some reason, for me, it was always about the strategy of the game. I really love strategy.
And that's what's wrong with the game right now, as far as I'm concerned. The game has totally changed.
Yes, it has. It has
So
changed.
much. You know, but even before '73, before the DH, the way small ball was played, the way you would actually take the chance to steal bases.
Right.
People, you know, to steal base, it was 75% of the time you're able to steal a base. Now they're saying if you can't steal the base more than 50% of the time, don't even try.
Right.
You know, but that's all because of the type of player
Exactly.
that is now
Exactly.
in baseball. It's not
Exactly.
the game that I grew up on.
Right.
It's not the type of style of baseball that I'm used to playing.
Right.
It's kind of difficult to watch, and I think that's part of the struggles now too.
No
While they're having so much trouble getting people in the stands and the game,
You're exactly
you bring
right.
back true baseball, real baseball, and the throw the gentleman part of the game out. I mean, I remember, you know, we were talking about Renfree Field and the Sacramento Pepsi night Winter League games.
Right.
I mean, those were some hardcore baseball.
Oh,
You were sliding
definitely.
spikes up.
Oh,
You were
yeah.
doing everything it took to make sure you were safe and scoring the runs. And that's exactly how the black baseball and the Negro Leagues were played.
Yeah.
Aggressive style.
Right.
You almost knew what they were going to do. You tried to stop, but most
Right.
of the time you couldn't.
Yeah, and with some charisma. And with some charisma. Okay, because I never will forget one general manager, John McHale, who was a general manager, a great presence in my career. He would tell me, "Hey, you got to go out and put on a show. The people want to see a show, and that's what we pay you for." But now we don't have that athlete that we can say, "That's our guy. Let's mimic this guy," and that thing. So it's a challenge, but I do see it turning around. I do see that.
Because like Anthony, when you were playing in the Mets, that's right when it was making a big turn from the dead ball era to the big ball era. So that was a big transition for you.
But a big thing for me is having the love for the game. Baseball is one of those games that you gotta love to play. And when you love the game and you got the passion for the game, you're gonna do all the things necessary. You're gonna take those extra reps in the cages. You're gonna take those extra ground balls. And when we're talking about a certain demographic that may not be playing, that has a big part to do with it, because there's a lot of love for football. There's a lot of love for basketball, and you're not getting that same amount of time committed to it like the kids in the Dominican are. They play with a different love and passion for the game, and you see them taking over baseball. But once a kid falls in love with this game is when we're going to see more Tim Andersons and McCutcheons and whatnot.
Let's get into why, though. Let's get into why, because you made a valid point. Because when you was growing up, baseball was, football is, like you said, football is big, but I mean, we had more of an agency for baseball, in other countries, in Dominican Republic, Cuba, and other sports. That's number one. That's held high. Why do you think baseball is such a lack of interest right now for young kids, like everywhere, but particularly African Americans?
A lot of them just here and say it's slow, it's boring. There's not a big rate of success, and you can get deeper into a young black man that subconsciously needs some validation, if you will. So there's a lot more glitz and glamour, in basketball and football. You look at how many people are at a Friday night football game compared to a baseball game in high school. It's simple as that. You go to college, you can do the same thing, and that has a little bit to do
In,
with
in
it too.
baseball, even the schools and the middle schools, they apply most of the equipment. They give you your helmet, they give you your pads, they give you, they sometimes even give you cleats. But in baseball, you have to supply your cleats, you got to supply your glove, you got to supply your bat. And nowadays, your gloves are $500, your bats are $300, your cleats are $200. It's just taking families and these kids away from the game.
There's a ton of
It's just
variables of why
ridiculous.
the number of African
Absolutely.
American players are down. There's a
And a lot of it is my generation's fault, because we chose to let our kids play different sports. But now it's become specific, where kids now just play one sport
All
the
year
whole
round.
year
Train.
round.
Yeah.
And since baseball is a skill type of sport, then when you play those guys and you're behind, at least in the repetition of the skill, then you say, hey, I could do this in football. Like you say, it's a little bit more glamorous in high school. High school has state championship. Baseball, we just play the regional championship, and the thing is over.
I would say it's politics at the club level and high school level. Just from my personal experience, there's a lot of gatekeepers that could get like their son on over a position. There's a lot of control where you're at a young age where you can get turned off on it. So what a lot of my friends did, very good baseball players, but when they got up to the high school level, they started playing travel ball. They started to see what kind of guys went on with certain teams and people get left out, and they just got left behind. They'll take the very, very best player, and the guys that's on the cusp that could be college players, that could be serviceable, probably make the majors, it's left by the wayside. So I definitely see politics as a large way, and it's not being controlled. If you look at college baseball, it's 95.1% white.
And that's what I was getting ready to say, I feel college is a huge part of the declining numbers that we're seeing up top. With the kids have to go to all these showcases, spend thousands of dollars to possibly be seen and whatever, and the college recruiters do use the showcases. They do use the data. They do go off of what's his exit velocity at perfect game, whatever it may be, and it's sabermetrics in another way. And there's a lot of obstacles when it comes to college, like you said, but that's a huge one for me. When you have a kid who could, and there's only 11.3 scholarships, and you have coming from a family where it's a little bit rough, and you're offered a full ride to play football, or you got to pay $15,000 a year to go play baseball, and so there's like I said, there's a ton of variables. And I think college is a huge one.
Yeah, in college, matter of fact, Major League Baseball will, I think our commissioner is going to head to the College World Series, and I think he's going to get an eye-opening experience that, wow, because 70% of the Major League roster is Division I college players. So if you got 1% of us playing, and 70%, you figure the numbers out.
I see a like door because I had a partial scholarship, Texas Southern.
Oh, okay.
Coming out of high school. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to come. Hurricane Katrina happened. All the kids from New Orleans went to the Texas schools.
Okay.
But tried to walk on locally, Sac State. Just ran into a lot of politics. That's why I appreciate what you guys are doing with J.M.F. because it's like I feel like I'm that everyday player. I'm that student at J.M.F. that could get in and get a fair shake that love the game. So I really appreciate what y'all doing.
Yeah, we'd love to have you come out and talk to the kids, man.
Oh,
we're
definitely.
We're getting after it every day. We had a beautiful inter squad today talking about Negro League charisma. It made me kind of think about that. Some of our guys going at each other, trying to strike each other out. And, we're preparing for the playoffs, so we don't always have these settings, but we are this week, and it's a beautiful thing.
I love to. I would like to get into your coaching career because I think that's super interesting. I didn't know it was 3 generations of baseball right here, so I'm glad to know that. But I'd definitely like to get into your manager career and your coaching career right after we get back. So we'll be right back with the Sacramento Dugout. We're back with the Sacramento Dugout show with some great guests, the Manuel family. You got Jerry and Anthony Manuel. Jerry, Mr. Manuel. Mr. Manuel, I gotta respect. I gotta respect my
He's
elders.
65 years old.
It's my dad age. My dad age. So yeah.
Okay.
I would like to really get into your coaching career. You coached
Okay.
you managed the Chicago White Sox and you managed the New York Mets. I want to know, one, just what's the strategy and the mindset of, 162 games of managing a major league ball club, and then two, just your trajectory to that position, because it's rare seeing black coaches in general.
Yeah. Well, I started my career shortly after I stopped playing. I made a phone call and the guy said, "Hey, don't call anybody else. This is a Montreal Expo guy." He said, "Don't call anybody else. I got a job for you." So I became a what they call a roving infield instructor, and then from there, I became what they call a field coordinator, which handles all the instructions of the minor leagues for Montreal. And then we lost a AA manager that was in Jacksonville, Florida, and we had transitioned to Florida as a family in West Palm Beach to be the hub for the Montreal Expos, and he wanted me to live there. So I managed my first year, and I always loved, like I say, I love the strategy, and I always like to move men, and motivate men to give all they got. And once you gave me that, I was satisfied with the wins and losses. I knew we'd be okay. Obviously, if you had the talent. So I became the manager of the Jacksonville Expos, and I think it was 1990. I was the manager of the year that year, and the next year I moved to AAA and left that team. They made a change at Montreal, and they named a guy the manager, and they called me up to be the third base coach, and then Philippe Lou took over, and Philippe Lou was unbelievable with the game of baseball.
Yes, he was.
He was unbelievable. He had such tremendous knowledge, but he never wanted to. He was so humble. He wanted to stay in A-ball, and I was like his boss in A-ball because I was a field coordinator, so I ran all the instructions in all the minor leagues. And I said, "Philippe, man, he said, no, I love fishing, Jerry. This is West Palm. I like to stay and fish. I love the ocean." So, but then they called him up to Montreal to be the bench coach, and he eventually took over, and I became his third base coach. And he would allow me during press conferences at the end of the game to come in and listen to the press conference. He said, "This is a big part of what you're going to do at some point in your life." I said, "Yeah, okay." So I went in and listened to him talk, and then from him, I got to experience managerial excellence under Jim Leland in '97. We won the World Series with the Marlins at that time, and so I had the opportunity to pick the brains of two of probably some of the strongest strategists in the game of baseball. Sure. And some people asked me where I went to school. I said my baseball school was Harvard and Yale. I had a Lou, I had a Lou in Leland, and then also to have Dusty Baker as a sounding board from Sacramento, and then Frank Robinson. He was in charge of the umpires and the discipline of the game. He gave me the biggest fine ever been put out because I got kicked out of a game. We got in a big brawl with the Tigers. I was with the White Sox. He gave me like a week with a big old fine, and they asked me to say something against Frank. I said, "No, okay, I had too much respect for him, what he's doing, and he's just trying to get things right." So that was kind of where my career really took off. I had a lot of people that I could go to and ask. I said, "Hey, what about this? What about that?" And when my interview process, I go back to my interview process with the White Sox. I think I was number 60 on the list of interviews. I didn't know they were going to interview that many people for the job. I was number 60, and they interviewed in West Palm. They said, "You just come to the hotel and sit down, we're going to interview." And the guy broke out, Ron Schuler, he had a list of questions that he broke out, but before he broke those out, I had fasted for 5 days.
Oh.
Yeah, I had fasted for 5. I didn't fast to get the job, I just wanted clarity as to what I could do.
So your mind was focused, so you could absorb information like
exactly,
nothing.
Exactly. So I had fasted for 5 days, and I went in, and he was a huge man. He stood up, he opened up his thing. He started asking questions, and I said, well, if you don't mind, let me just tell you about me and who I am and what I can do. And I had a list of things, and boom, once I roll those things out, I saw him begin to ball his paper up. I knew then I had the job. He didn't tell me, but I knew I had the job. So then the next week he said, hey, you need to go to Arizona to meet Jerry Reinsdorf. I'd heard so much about Reinsdorf because he was the Bulls. Yeah, he was the owner. He was owner of the Bulls and the White Sox, but he was a baseball guy. And the first question he asked me was, do you mind if I smoke a cigar? I said, I hope it's a good cigar because I like the smell of a good cigar and cut grass. That was the things I love to smell. I don't like to smoke, but I like to smell it. And so he said, wow. I said, okay, good. And then we had an extensive interview, and he asked me strategy questions and stuff like that I knew were just right up my alley, just right up my alley. Or the questions he was asking me, I mean, they were just, I knew I was giving him things that he had not heard and that he was not expecting from a young baseball mind. So, but I had been, like I said, I had been trained by some of the best, and then he dropped me off and he said, hey, I said, well, it's up to you. I said, I'm ready. I know I'm ready. It's up to you guys. I said, I'm not worried about what's going to happen, whether you give me the job or not. I said, I know at some point I'm going to manage in the big leagues, and I was ready to do that.
That's definitely the mindset, because the two states and the two cities that you coached in, Chicago and New York.
Yeah, that's pretty visible.
toughest cities to coach in, and not only you weren't in the Bronx, you were in Queens, in New York, and then you weren't with the Cubbies, you were in Southside.
Right.
So what was that like? I
mean, that was exciting. That was they talk about inner city rivalries. I think the White Sox and the Cubs is probably a bigger rivalry than the Yankees and the Mets. I mean, it was such a big rivalry that we had to play all those games in the day. And then my first year as a manager for the White Sox, the Cubs swept us, but it was like in the middle of the season. It first started interleague, so middle of the season they swept us. And
that was the Kerry Wood Cubs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Jerry Reinsdorf called me in the office. He said, "Hey, I need to let you know something." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Anytime we play the Cubs, those games are worth 2." I said, "Really?" Because he wanted to beat them so bad. So I said, next year, I told my pitching coach, I said, we're going to start with the Cubs. I want my number 1 guy throwing, my number 2 guy throwing, and my number 3 guy throwing, and then we'll work all the way back to the beginning of the season. So when we got to the Cubs, I had the number 1, number 2, and number 3, and we swept them.
Okay.
We swept them. Took them right out the
Those
back.
crowds were crazy.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Well,
You had to play them in the day because there was so much. You couldn't come on the South Side at night and play the Cubs.
Oh, you're saying home at at
our place.
Okay.
Not just because they were at Wrigley. No. When we played at our place, all had to be day games because of the.
Because where they're playing at, where?
Well, because of the intensity of the fans. Yes. Oh yeah, there was fights going on. There was Ali and Frazier going on out there all the time. Yeah.
So I want to get in deep because you said something that was key. You said you were 60 on the depth chart for coaching. Mm-hmm. Traditionally in major league coaching, it's always bench coach, and then there's a tier going up to be in line. Mm-hmm. I see in baseball now, I see Ron Washington, I see Bo Pettis, I see a lot of black coaches on the sidelines, first base, third base. Mm-hmm. I rarely see, bench coaches. I rarely see it.
Now you see a guy go from TV to straight manage the Yankees without any of that experience.
Are they just coach? Are they just caught and then they give them a full job as no experience? I see that too. They just got off the field catching and let's try this guy out. How do you told me your story, but how do you think you could navigate to get into that front spot? I mean, it's amazing mind like that, but how do other coaches line themselves up to be able to get the shot to manage, in your opinion?
Oh, that's a difficult challenge. First of all, you got to get an opportunity to sit before management. You got to sit before the hierarchy of that particular organization. When I went to New York Mets, I called Willie Randolph I was out of baseball. I had just been let go by the White Sox. I called Willie Randolph, just told him, I just want to prepare you for what to expect. You've never managed a team, but I just want to prepare you for what to expect. I know you have your staff and what have you all together, and he said, yeah, I got my bench coach, I got this, I got that. I said, oh, well, good. I said, but if you have any questions, give me a holler. I said, we only know each other just out of respect. When you see the opposition, you play, hey, what's up, bro? How you doing? Boom, boom, boom. But he said, well, I already got my staff. I said, okay, cool. So then one day he called me, said, can you come in tomorrow? I'm in the West Coast. I said, how am I going to get that? He said, well, we'll fly you out. So I flew out and met with their hierarchy. And I knew once I got into that setting that they would have to find a place for me on that staff. And then as that day was over, I fly back home, and I get a call from Dusty. Dusty called me. He's in Hawaii. He said, Jerry, what did you tell those people? I said, what do you mean what I tell those people? He said, man, they called me, tell me you got to take the job, you got to take the first base coach job, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, you know what, Dusty? I said, well, things have to be right. Things have to be in place for me to do that. I want to do everything I can, but if I'm the only person in this entire organization that has managed, and you're gonna put me at first base and nobody else in New York, I said, well, that's got to cost you something, And so I submitted to that, and the real was, my wife asked me when I left the White Sox. She said, where do you think God is going to take you next? I said, honey, it's funny, but he told me New York. She said, I don't want to go to New York. I don't go to New York. And then he takes me to New York, but he puts me on first base. He didn't make me a bench coach. He picked me over there to pick up helmets. He said, you just stay humble, pick these helmets up, and boom, 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 and offer what you can when you're asked. I'm down the line. I'm not the bench coach. I'm not the pitching coach. I'm not the third base coach. So when you're asked, then you speak. And that's what I did. I waited till they asked me. And sometimes I would tell them this. I said, well, I was hoping you wouldn't ask me this question because I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what's real. And then they said, oh, wow, we got something here on our hands.
This is great.
We're going to get into some real...
well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because when we come back, we're going to talk about J.M.F. and the head coachings from Anthony over there at the facility right when we get back. Hey, and welcome back. We're going to be talking about J.M.F., the Jerry Manuel Foundation, and the Alpha Chapter? Charter.
Alpha Charter.
So the Alpha Charter. And you got the Alpha Angels team going on.
Yes.
And you're the manager of the team, and right now you're sitting in league 5-0. Your stats and the team, every time I'm looking at CIF, all your players are way up there. Playoffs are coming right around the corner. How you sitting, Coach?
You know what? First, just to be clear, I'm the director of baseball operations for the Jerry Manuel Foundation. So run everything on field, what the program looks like from the middle school kids until the high school kids. The head varsity coach is Isaac Johnson, who actually did play at Cordova and with the Phillies. He's the head coach. I do aspire to
99
manage.
problems?
I do aspire to manage, and I have managed a lot of the teams. But as of right now, I'm not the manager, but I'm still out there. We're all running the game together.
But baseball is a thinking man's game. You got one of the best baseball thinkers, so I'm pretty sure that you're doing just like a man. I mean, you got our guy Isaac, leading the way, but being able to use your father and the skill sets that you've learned from being a young kid to where you're at now. You still use some of the words that your father uses.
100%, and I'm picking his brain to this day. A lot of the things that he's expressed that have helped him from gathering the love to read, so that you can understand things and articulate yourself, and from the strategy of the game to whatever it may be. I've taken all that on, and it's definitely a thinking man's game. Like he says, it's chess, not checkers. And right now, at this point, as we're preparing for playoffs, what we're shooting for as a team is just to play a clean game, all the way through. Dealing with the adolescence, there's a lot of nervous energy at times, but some boneheaded errors, if you will. So right now we're just challenging ourselves to play as clean as possible, and I'm noticing that's helping the guys actually to anticipate more, and it's improving their instincts at the same time.
And Anthony, I noticed you said emphasize alpha. So is there going to be beta, omega? Is there going to be other chapters across the nation for JMF?
That's right now we are Alpha Charter. There has been, he can speak on interest with Major League Baseball that possibly replicating the program around the country. But we'll leave that at that right now. We're Alpha Charter here in Sacramento.
Okay. I could see it be needed in Oakland.
Oh yeah, no, I mean
LA,
it's
Atlanta.
It's needed. Definitely needed.
It's the educational. The educational component is really huge.
Well, that's just the players. But people don't understand what I see different about JMF is how the players, they get to travel, but how they represent themselves while traveling. It's not like a lot of kids are carrying their back, got their headphones in, they're little stationary groups. You guys travel as a team, you operate as a team, you function as a team, but you also present yourself as a giant family. So to be able to see how everybody, it's not like they're falling in line, but everybody, everybody knows the program and knows the process, and it seems like everybody is following that path, and it's just well formed. I mean, it's just amazing.
Thank you. That's the goal.
Yeah. We're trying to, instill other things in them, in their character, other than just baseball is just a great thing to mimic in humanity. Because all the failures and all the struggles that you go through with life, and young African American men,
the stresses that they're under.
It's just
my goodness.
It's just unbelievable. But if we can instill self-discipline, then we think we got a chance for them to do other things that might not be baseball, but they can at least survive in this world.
Grow into great men and women for
Right.
the society and the community.
No doubt.
Because a lot of the guys that go through and they graduate in college, they come back to help out the community
no doubt.
tenfold. And that's basically what the whole system and everybody's system should be about. You're given to a young child, and if that child is successful or not, if they come back and continue to give, then we've done our job.
We've done our job. And it don't take but one.
That's it.
We're out there for one. If there's one that do it, we great. But we're gonna take care. We're gonna give everybody the same opportunity. But if we can just get with one, then I'm happy. I might not see it in my lifetime, but I do believe that at some point our culture is gonna come back around and support this great game of baseball like never before.
Thank you.
You're gonna see players, and you're gonna see the game get back to the changes that Jackie Robinson made. I think we're gonna kind of have the same influence and impact without imposing.
I think that's
Couldn't
great.
say it a better way.
I appreciate everything y'all doing, especially with the JMF. You guys are taking a proactive approach into changing the narrative, so I really appreciate that. We talk on the show a lot about travel ball, pay for play, and y'all program goes right head to head with that, with a beautiful mission. And I appreciate you guys coming on the show, sharing y'all program. Man, it's just been great. I feel like
thanks for having us. It's always good to talk baseball, especially the topic that we are. It's just been pretty.
I would say the last thing is that even though we dealing with our culture and with other cultures too. We try to deal with everyone, but our kids it's not free. It's that they got to go out, and if we're feeding the hungry, we got to go. We got to be there. That's mandatory. If we're clothing the people that's on the streets, that's mandatory. You got to be. Or you're not going to play.
They pay with their commitment, which you see everyone coming in fold and becoming that family way out there in Alberta.
That's it. That's exactly what we see.
Well, all out of time for the Sacramento Dugout Show. For Todd Sullivan, for Anthony, Jerry Manuel Foundation, for the family. This has been the Sacramento Dugout Show.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.